At 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Attendance, as well as chair present. Patricia Chambers is absent. Mr. Todd Ireland.
Present.
Mr. Chris Wiley.
Present.
Mr. Homer Knight.
Present.
Mr. Brandon Crum.
Present.
We have a quorum. Okay. That's there. Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
This is Todd Ireland. I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, agenda passes. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Can all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's passed. We will table the treasurer's report until next meeting as our treasurer is ill. Okay. For supplemental bond resolutions providing for additional redemption terms with respect to the previously approved $3,915,000 Downtown Development Authority of Fairburn's Revenue Funding Bond. That's the Educational Campus Project, Series 2023, and making other provisions in connection with the foregoing. Ms. Abernathy, do you have?
Yes, we're going to invite Mr. Nelson up for a presentation of the.
Bill Johnston.
Bill Johnson, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you all for gathering. I hope you had a very good Christmas, and I'm very pleased that you were able to gather again tonight, and thank you for doing so. I've put before you really a similar presentation to what we went over a month ago. There's been a slight change, and that is really the redemption provisions that we really didn't have when we talked with you a month ago. We kind of got a verbal agreement with the bank. It was promptly reported to you. I got it that afternoon, promptly reported to you that evening. But we didn't have the redemption language, year end, that sort of thing. So we needed to make an adjustment, if you will. We were going to close the issue last week. Now we're going to close it this coming Friday. So they're just very, very slight adjustments. If you would, please turn to page 3 in this very brief handout I put before you. Little has changed except the redemption provisions. What we talked about originally was a bond sizing of $3,915,000. This is to refund and restructure the next 4 principal payments of a 2017 bond issue that the city entered into for the campus project just north of the city here. That will provide really debt service relief for the city. Turn over to page 4, if you would. That will provide some savings to the city on the far right-hand corner. In 2024, it'll provide $863,000 in savings. The next year, $779,000, then $799,000, then $818,000. And the reason for that is to pay for this, the city is using other available funds, not just the revenues off of the campus project, but other revenues of the city. They wanted some relief from raising rates from the utility systems. That helps pay for this. And so this was a way for us to structure that so that rates would not go up particularly fast. And so that's the reason for that. Mm-hmm. Let me show you what the call provisions look like. Turn on page 7, if you would. This is almost the identical presentation we went over a month ago. On the far right-hand corner, just to show a comparison, the call features that the bank is giving us, that we're placing this with a bank instead of doing a public issue, which we have done in the past. If you were to do a public issue, typically bonds cannot be called for 10 years. So the next 10 years, we would not be able to call those bonds at all. That's standard. We're placing these with Ameris Bank, and they have given us call provisions. If you call it, in the first, certainly in the first 7 years, we're not going to be calling the bonds. We don't anticipate that the city would call the bonds, but they have the right to do so. If they call next year, they have a 7% premium, 2 years out, 6%, and on down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We don't anticipate those bonds being called at all, but there is a call provision which is really better than what the market would, if we issued bonds in the public markets, it's better than those. So that is what the purpose of the meeting is for, is to tell you about those redemption features, to get you to approve them, and so we can finalize the bond documents so we can close this on Friday. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have in whatever level of detail you may have. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned the call-in provision is stated, but you don't expect it to be called, so what's the purpose of it being there?
Excellent question. I like to have the flexibility for the city or my clients to be able to call those bonds if they need to. They sell some property, want to pay the bonds off early, it gives them an opportunity to do so. I don't anticipate that happening, but you do have the option to do that. It gives the city more flexibility is the primary reason. And when we did the original issue in 2017, the bonds were callable at any time. Bank has tightened up those call provisions since that time. The market has changed. And so they're now putting some restrictions on those call provisions. Sometimes they're loose, sometimes they're tight. They've just tightened up lately, but hopefully they'll loosen up in the future. But I want to provide my clients in the city with as much flexibility as I can give them. That's the reason for it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Abernathy, what do we have to do as a board here? Is this the provision that we're voting on, number 5?
Yes, this is the provision that you would vote for approval
Okay.
or
Denial.
And just to be clear, it's brought back to you this evening because these exact numbers were not listed when you initially met.
Right.
It needs to be clear on the record what you approve. And obviously, if you don't call, there won't be any
Issue.
penalties, unless you do. You have, year 8, anything you do between now and 7, 6, 5, progressively goes down.
Okay.
So the cost is minimal. It's full disclosure, so they have to make it clear to you before you vote upon it, and then we recommend it to the city council.
Oh, okay.
And on those minutes, the notes that I provided with you, to you when the meeting first started, if you recall, Mr. Phillips gave a presentation, and it was a
Last meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of roughly 800,000, what the challenge is, the debt service,
Mhm.
and the city's revenues. The revenues are not at a point where they can fully take care of the debt service.
Right.
So they met with Mr. Johnson to identify a way of handling that, and that is the refunding of the bond. So it does not extend
Mhm.
the amount, it just adds to the back end. It does not refund the entire bond, but just a portion of it.
Okay. Very good. Yes.
So,
Tonight.
if I understand this right, we already approved this, right? And we approving the change that was made in the numbers-wise to comply.
You have approved it.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was not disclosed at the time of the approval was the call feature because we didn't know it.
Okay.
at the time. And after you approved it, the call feature was given to us as bond counsel was preparing all the documents, and he said at that point, this should have been in the original documents for the DDA to approve.
Got it.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, because you know what, I was a little confused because I thought we'd approved it before, and I'm going, okay.
Right, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is just the disclosure piece to wrap it up neat? Yeah, okay,
So nobody can say, hey, well, you guys didn't tell us about that.
right,
It was not present at the initial meeting. They did not have the information.
okay. Very good. Any more discussion?
I got one thing from Mr. Johnston, I apologize. You mentioned that, I guess based upon this being a bond with the bank and not a public bond, that rate is actually substantially lower than what it would be, I guess, public.
Good question. It depends on the market. The primary places that you sell bonds or place bonds is in the public markets or privately placed with banks and insurance companies or private investors. It depends on where the market is. Sometimes banks are lower in interest rates, sometimes the market is. The market is most of the time. In this particular instance, this is the bank we've dealt with on the prior issue. They were happy to accommodate. They gave us a good rate because we checked it against the market. And as you can see, the call features are better than what we would get in the market. So in this case, yes, it is. This is better. This placement is better than what the market rates would be.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I'm willing to entertain a motion to approve item number 5, the 4th supplemental bond. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, can I have a second? Do I have to read it again for the record?
Yeah, read it for the record.
Okay. So the motion is to approve a 4th supplemental bond resolution providing for additional redemption terms with respect to the previously approved $3,915,000 Downtown Development Authority of Fairburn Revenue Refunding Bond, parentheses, Educational Campus Project, Series 2023, and making other provisions in connection with the foregoing. That is the motion. Can I have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Knight seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Okay. Item number 6, the facade grant program, applications for review and approval. Ms. Abernathy.
Good evening, Board. What you have before you, we brought the facade grant program before the Board's attention monthly 3 months ago. And we have 5 applicants who have submitted for the facade grant. So what we're doing tonight is just a matter of record. This will be the first phase of the review process. And I just wanted to kind of go over the program for the record. In your packets, you'll have each of the applicants, the information that they submitted thus far, as well as the evaluation criteria. Can we bring up the PowerPoint presentation? Just to recap the program, let's see, am I able to? Okay, let's see. Yep. Yeah, oh, there we go, okay. All right, so the purpose of the facade grant, and this was approved by Mayor and Council, is to implement a transformative strategy to improve and to promote continuity in design and architecture within our historic downtown commercial district. Roughly $50,000 of ARPA funds were identified to enhance design and placemaking strategies. Upon our initial implementation of this program, we were looking at business recruitment, working with design consultants, technical consultants to enhance our downtown beautification, as well as build out. The first phase of that business recruitment has gone pretty as well as expected. We've worked with one of our phases with our Third Fridays events, with some piloted programs, as well as switching vendors from participation, and events into brick and mortar, as well as we have looked at looking at pilot programs, BRE reports, having them fill out surveys to find out what are the strengths and weaknesses of new businesses into our downtown areas. Last year, we recruited estimated 40 to 42 businesses within our downtown area. Both of those are a combination of businesses that went into brick and mortar, as well as home-based businesses and entrepreneurs. So we look at a track that helps them to thrive within the city of Fairburn. Another thing that we look at is through our partnership with our buildings director. We identified technical consultants that could assist with design. I don't want you to pay attention to those dates because those dates had to change. We kind of started off very aggressively and we thought, hey, we're gonna get this program, and we found out we could not commit folks to a specific date. It took more time than what we thought, so we had to be very flexible with those dates. In fact, by the time March rolled around, we did not have all of the businesses who had finished the application process for the facade grant. In fact, we had folks that still needed to understand the process. There were folks that did not have brick and mortar, wanted more information. And we didn't have really all of these applicants, the 5 applicants, until the end of August, to be honest with you. We worked with 2 or 3 of the applicants actually met with an architect to talk about facade improvements. Some of them were able to get some design information. Some of them could not because of the cost, but they were able to discuss some design elements that they could work towards in the future. But it was a great exercise in terms of them understanding what those kind of technical consultants could do to assist them. We're not at the build-out. We're now at the build-out phase by bringing these 5 applicants before the board. So the purpose of tonight is to, number one, start the process, and to, identify, number one, what the facade program is an incentive program for business owners to rehabilitate their locations. We've talked to pretty much all of our downtown businesses,
Yeah.
all of them at this point. And for those who have asked the question, well, what about the folks on Highway 74? We've reached out to the Highway 74 businesses through our small business grant. The facade program is dedicated to the overlay district. So that is downtown, the historic commercial district. But for the larger community, we have reached out through our small business grant program. This fund is a matching grant award, which will provide up to 50% in matching funds to those applicants. We will be working, or we continue to work with our planning and zoning. What we have found through this process is that some of our ordinances have to be updated, as with many cities. When you go through this exercise, you find out from businesses some of this stuff is counterintuitive for what they're trying to do. So we are working actively with our planning and zoning where we can assist. We're doing that, and we're working with our businesses. One case in particular, we're gonna have to work with our business and the planning and zoning department to kind of help get them through the process. Program restrictions, again, that's something that we have to be guided by the existing ordinance, And again, we're working with our businesses to move forward as, again, this is an incentive program, but at the same time, we want to pay attention to our architectural designs and make sure that we are making improvements that have respect for our character spaces. With that said, here is the overlay district and the boundaries. That's pretty much our gateway. It begins where our gateway is, and it ends just beyond where the police department is located. So that's the boundary. The time frame, again, we had changed that time frame because we found out that was too limiting for most of our applicants. So our eligibility, again, all of the applicants are within our district boundary. Applicants are required to provide at least 3 bids for applicants whose grants or their grant requests are more than $1,000. And it's available for both profit and nonprofit retail businesses. Eligible projects are historic storefront restorations, stabilization, awnings, paint, fresh facades, and non-conforming feature removals. We do have some cases where folks inherited properties where it is a historic building that some of the facades are not consistent with that particular period. So for those property owners who want to enhance, we do have grants available for that. So these are the criteria. On your evaluation form, there is a section that says criteria of evaluation, and these are the tiers in which we identified in terms of the categories for applicants to apply. That is also a part of the scoring. Now tonight, we're not asking you to score the applicants. Again, this is just a matter of starting the process. The Development Authority will evaluate each applicant, and they will evaluate them according to property visibility, character spacing, significance to downtown, historic nature, existing condition, potential for improvement, impact for improvement, facade improvement, start and completion date, and finally, evaluation criteria. For the applicant, this now begins the process. So we anticipate between 30 to 45 days. So by the next meeting, our goal is to talk to the applicant. All applicants were notified prior to this meeting via email that their application would go before the board this evening, and that that the process will begin, and that if there were any questions regarding their application, they would have the opportunity to come before the board to discuss their project in full. If there are any deficiencies, they would be given the opportunity to bring those deficiencies current, and that a decision would be made by the board after their file is complete.
Question.
Yes.
I see a few of them, and I'm sure they're not complete, but will we have like a visual?
Yes.
We can actually see like
Exactly.
before and after?
Yes. So today is basically just to, again, start the process. We needed to get on record is basically saying we have received, because one of the challenges, folks wanted to know our timing. We had to, number one, the Development Authority had to be in a position to actually process their application. We had some background situations we needed to handle in terms of making sure that we could, from a legal perspective, be able to do what we needed to do. Now we're at that stage. Then also, just from a processing standpoint, now go on the record saying, hey, we have received your application, and this is the process moving forward, and to make sure everything is done above board.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I have a question.
Right? Sure.
How, ones that applying for the grant, I'm gonna use a number, just $50,000, you match it, it's $100,000. Everything downtown is old.
Yes.
How are they putting that number into unforeseen part of the construction, rebuilding the older building?
3
The
beds.
city is gonna require an update, new, you know, because when you go into an old building and start to work, you have to bring it up to date on certain parts. So if you can't see it, how's that liability gonna be handled?
That's a great question, Mr. Knight. And that is one of the reasons why in the guidelines, it is required that they have a pre-conference meeting with planning and zoning. Number one, your question actually hits on 2 things. Number one, do they own the building? If they own the building, then they have to have that pre-approval conference with planning and zoning that basically says, here are your requirements for that building being up to code. If they don't own the building, then do they have the authority to make any changes or the changes that they're making? If they do have that authority, then we have the right sign-off from that property owner. And again, they still have to have those sign-offs from planning and zoning. So, and then lastly, the 3 quotes. Contractors know that they have to go through the proper permitting process in order to begin work. And that will require them to have the necessary checkoffs from, again, the building permits department and planning and zoning as well. So that gives us that added assurance so that as a board, anyone you sign off on, you know that you have that, you're not signing off on someone who can then not be able to fulfill the project.
Okay, so the project one, because the one side didn't have enough money to make those changes, they would know up front.
Yes, sir.
You would have to make these additional changes to comply to the city code.
Yes, sir. Right.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, first of all, you answered some of my questions about planning and zoning and permitting. But just for clarification, the DDA will be the grant review team, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also, is this a competitive grant, whereas we have 5 applicants where we're picking one, or do we have a budget of X amount of dollars that we could draw from?
Have a budget of X amount of dollars, and once those funds are depleted, we would have to go through additional approvals through the city administration. If there are any additional, it would be first come, first serve.
Okay, since this is a match program, say, it's gonna use Fairburn Pond, say their amount is 25,000, and they have 12,500. If we exceed that budget amount, and we can only give them 10,000, what happens there?
So, let me make sure I understand. If we exceed that budget amount, there are still some funds available. Help me understand, I may have missed a portion of the question.
Okay, I want to know if we had like a budget, say $1 million to draw from,
Oh, I see what you're saying. What's the overall budget?
right? And
50.
then
Yeah.
50,000.
50,000, yes, sir.
And so, reviewing these 5 different applicants, we're basically saying we're gonna take 50,000, divide by 5, and leave each one.
No, sir. So each one of the projects, and that is why this evaluation becomes so important, because on the, under each one of them, if you look at the narratives, it allows you to give one section more priority over another. And if you look at the project, you can score based upon location, based upon where you feel like that project has, in terms of impact in the downtown area. You can actually, and you can also give a higher weight on where it says evaluation criteria on the tier. So let's say Fairburn Pond has, or I don't want to use a name because I don't want someone saying, oh, well, yeah, but let's say one business has a greater ask, but from an evaluation standpoint, you say that the weight is not there, then that doesn't necessarily mean they get all of the funds that they're asking. It doesn't, you get, that score allows you to weight the amount and the value of their ask.
Okay, that makes sense. But according to the package, it's a maximum of $10,000.
Correct.
So each candidate probably would say they want $10,000. If, for instance, we don't spend the $50,000, we opening us up to other candidates, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then that also allows us to kind of knock on folks' door and say, hey, did you know that you qualify? We're seeing that your paint needs to be updated. You're a historic building. Did you know that you could qualify for this paint being updated?
Okay.
You know,
So what you're saying is they can spend more than, let's say, 10,000 is, they have to match, right? So it'd be a $20,000 project.
correct.
They can spend more than $20,000, but the city's piece is reimbursable up to 10,000.
Up to 10,000, correct.
Okay. Other questions? Is there a drop dead date on the funding, or, you know?
No, we were authorized to go ahead and just leave it open until funds are depleted.
Very good. Okay, is there any action at this point that we need to take on this, or?
No.
This is just
This is, we will bring it back up during the next meeting. And as the applicants finish their files, then we'll bring it before the committee for approval and awards. Now, should the committee look at these files and you want more information, then you'll let us know. But if you we'll communicate with you about the evaluation process, because we'll start needing those scores back from the members. But again, this is a matter of going on record, basically saying we have received these files and starting the review and approval process.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
At the stage of the project, is it $10,000 given up front or in different stages?
So that's another great question. Initially, this was strictly reimbursable, but when we went before mayor and council, there was a city council member that was concerned about people affordability, that there may be people who are in need. In that particular case, now this is case by case, that person has to show need. We are allowed, based upon need-based, if a person shows need, we can get that grant approved. But the intent of the program is a reimbursable grant.
Let me see if I understand this correctly. If they're in the process and they need funding, it'll be reimbursable before, part of it will be reimbursable before the project is complete.
Right, and again, they have to show need. The intent of this program is as a reimbursable grant. The only way that is done is because a city council member basically asked and it was approved, that one component and that person has to show need. They have, yeah.
And what happens if those monies are sent out and the project isn't completed?
Again, we'll have to handle that case by case. And I believe when that person shows need, they have to show those 3 quotes, and I believe that it's paid directly to that contractor. So if it's a need base, it gets paid directly to the contractor.
Just for the record, because you said it's a need base, to me, it appears the city can have a liability. Because if it's a need, and you get into some change orders on a project, and they already got the money, and didn't include that, because there's gonna be things that you cannot see
Right.
come up. And if there's no money for it, the project is gonna stop, because they already used that money.
All right.
If you give that money in advance, and don't give it out in stages, they'll spend too much money in this area and get to the other area, they can't complete your project. Now, the city gonna do something, because if there ain't no money, ain't no money.
All right.
It seems like a liability to me.
Well, one of the checks, I believe, is that this has to be approved by the Development Authority. So you all would have to approve it.
All right. I understand what Mr. Knight is saying. Renovation is such a dynamic process that, you know, you open up a wall or you know, take out a support beam or whatever, and it affects more than just what you thought it was going to affect. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good question, and we can.
No, it's an excellent point that Mr. Knight brings up, and that part was, I believe that was a part of the discussion. But you were asking me the question, and that was brought up in the discussion when we first presented the project. But the program itself is based upon the reimbursable grant. And that is to protect, as you stated, against any sort of fraud or a project not being completed. All of the applicants here are moving forward with that construct in mind in terms of from a standpoint of a reimbursable grant. Providing the 3 quotes and with the understanding that the project, their portion of the project has to be completed within a certain time period.
Excuse me, there is a built-in check and balance on the reimbursable side, because if they don't finish, it's on them.
Exactly.
They eat it, right? So the pre-funding, we would really have to be careful in reimbursing folks before all the work was completed.
Exactly.
That's the downside.
Exactly. In fact, one of the, a couple of them, they already have the signs in place. They're already done. And they have in the packet they submitted, it's already, the pictures of the work has already been completed, as well as the contractor's report and the contractor's license.
So is it that they should have the financial strength of financing to fund the whole project going in?
Yeah, not
Right.
necessarily, because you see, of the 5 applicants, some of them do and some of them don't.
Okay.
You see some of them, one of them is completely done. There's some that have a portion of it done. And then there are others that haven't started their project. They're in the middle phase of their project. So
there's a start date and a completion date, which I guess according to the program guidelines should be 60 days, is it?
yeah, 60 days, definitely by, within 1 year.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is right. They have yeah, so it can be extended.
Yeah.
Yes,
within
okay.
1 year. Yeah.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, we'll go on to the election of a vice chair. I'd like to table that item. Do we have to vote to table that?
I believe there has to be a motion entered and then seconded.
Okay, can I have a motion to table the election of the vice chair?
Motion.
Second?
Start Ireland, a second.
Okay. All in favor of tabling item 5, election of vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. So that'll be till next meeting, hopefully. And the 2024 meeting schedule. Since our treasurer's not here, and I'd hopefully like everyone to be here before we agree on a schedule for 2024, I'd like to also table that item. Can we get a motion to table the meeting schedule
A motion that we table the meeting schedule to.
tonight? Second,
I second that motion.
Mr. Allen. It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Okay. Finally, I need a motion to adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just want the chairman to know there's some executory functions that you have to do when we're done here.
I got to do some signing.
Yep, sign it. We don't have a secretary.
I understand.
Yes, the secretary. Mr.
Do you have a
Ireland.
secretary?
Darling.
Mr.
So
Ireland.
we're good. We got chairman and secretary. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm getting to know you guys. My apologies.
Right, but that's
Chairman and secretary.
after the meeting.
Just
Right.
hang out a little bit with us.
Okay, not a problem. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Island, second. Mr. Wiley.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's adjourned at 6:39.